Thank you so much, Tom, and thank you so much to all of the members of the classes of 1970 and 1971 for being with us today and for your amazing and wonderful engagement with Worcester and commitment and support for our students. It's fantastic to be able to be with you today. And as Tom said, we only wish that we were able to be with you directly in person. We do hope that you'll be able to come and visit us on campus again soon. So before I jump into an update about how things have been going on campus, which I'm really excited to have a chance to share with you, I wanted to take a moment to thank all of you for everything that you've done for the college, both over the course of many decades, and in particular, through these really challenging years that have been the years of your 50th reunions, both for the classes of 1970 and for 1971. The ways that you've come together to support our students and our campus have been just tremendously impactful and hugely generous in so many different ways. As I think about your lifelong commitment and support of Worcester and of the Worcester Fund philanthropically, it's just extraordinary to see the giving from your classes. The class of 1970 has an amazing lifetime giving of over $7 million, $7,211,985 to be exact. And that has grown since your true 50th reunion last year. And the class of 1971 also has a wonderful and inspiring giving record over the last 50 years of $8,029,455. The gifts that you've given philanthropically with your time, with your engagement, with your connection with the campus are just tremendously impactful for all of us. You've made it possible for us to strengthen academic programs, to create opportunities for students to connect their learning in the classroom to work in the world. You've provided scholarships and access to Worcester's education for great students from every walk of life. Your care and commitment has really changed Worcester, and it's changed it in ways that matter for the great students that you see on the screen today. These are students, obviously, over the last year, enjoying their Worcester experience and having a wonderful time learning here despite the pandemic. You've changed it for these great students through this difficult time. And of course, your commitments make a difference for many, many years to come. You are making it possible for Worcester continue to be a place that changes lives and making it possible for Worcester graduates to continue to be people who make a big impact in the world, just like all of you have, from the day that they graduate across the many decades of their professional lives in the world. So I did want to take the opportunity today to share a little bit about the state of the college and our strategy. And I'll give you an upfront warning. I'm mostly not going to talk about the pandemic. I am mostly going to talk about the big picture, the directions that we're taking. But of course, if you have questions about how we're navigating this moment, I'm happy to talk about those things at the end as well. So let's start just with the big picture, why we're here. What you see on the screen here is Worcester's mission, juxtaposed with some pictures of the class of 2021 graduating. And if we think about this mission, preparing students to become leaders of character and influence in an interdependent global community, helping those students be ready to ask important questions and research complex issues, solve problems, communicate new knowledge and insight. If we look at that mission, which is enduring, but ask ourselves with open eyes how the actions we take need to change to enact that mission, that's what drives our thinking and planning for campus. So we know that making those things happen, preparing students to make an impact in the world, that's going to need different kinds of things now than it did 20 or 30 years ago. And it's going to need different things in a decade or 2 decades than it does at this moment. If we think about the moment that we find ourselves in now, it's clear that this generation of students is going to enter a world that's changing extraordinarily fast in lots of different ways, societally, economically, and through technology. And that those kind of changes profoundly affect the ways that we think and work, the ways that we learn and connect. I think that what we've all lived through over the last 14 months is an extraordinary example of how long-term trends, the global and interconnected nature of so many of our greatest challenges, the importance and limitations of technology in building community, the persistence of historic inequities and divisions, all of those evolutions make it ever more clear that the kind of education that Worcester provides, the deepest commitments of a Worcester education, remain even more crucial now than they've ever been before. If you think about what do people need, what tools do young people need to have in order to get at the kinds of challenges that we face today and look at as we think forward into the future, it's immediately obvious. Learning broadly, having that broad interdisciplinary perspective that comes from liberal arts education, having many ways of knowing, understanding not just science, but also history and society and ethics and human expression, that is critical. We can look at the science of this moment, right? To help people come through the pandemic, you don't just need the molecular biology of a vaccine. You need to really understand what does it take across a society to help move health forward. So that is critically important, that broad learning. We also know that learning deeply, that breaking out beyond the known to innovate and create new understanding, making meaning from complexity, being willing to invent new questions and find new ways to answer them, the things that students do in independent study, that is going to continue to be ever more critical as a preparation for students for their future. And then, of course, last but not at all least, the fact that our students here at the College of Worcester learn together. They don't learn in isolation. They don't learn typically just in their bedroom by themselves. They learn in community. They learn in connected classrooms with fantastic peers and amazing faculty and staff. They learn in the dining halls when they're talking about what's happening in news events. They learn on the playing field. They learn in musical spaces. They learn together, and they learn by making meaning together with one another, with people whose experiences before college are very, very diverse and different from the ways that they grew up. And that kind of learning that we do here at the college, learning broadly, learning deeply, and learning together, is going to be critical to preparing students to go after the biggest challenges of our future. At the same time, we know that colleges, including the College of Worcester, face a rapidly changing national and global context. We know that, for example, the numbers of students coming to the college from our traditional regions, like the Midwest, are decreasing. 60% of our students still come from the Midwest. And in this region, we expect the numbers of high school graduates to be decreasing by as much as 20% by 2029. We know that families have constraints on their incomes, and they're really paying attention to ways that they and their young people can get more from and pay less for a college education. So accessibility and making the college really a great value for students, an ethical value, a value for their futures, that is critically important. And we need to pay attention to what young people and their families are looking for as we think about the ways that we shape the college for the future. So all of this rapidly changing context really begs that question: what do we need to do? What do we need to make true in order to realize Worcester's most powerful promises, holding fast, of course, to our highest values as an institution, those values that even all the way back to Willis Lord were set out for us, building from the college's deep, deep strengths, but also evolving and being willing to look at where we are with open eyes to meet that mission. Again, creating those ethical leaders with global experience and perspective who are really ready to make an impact and to contribute to whatever area of work that they want to do, and to make that impact right away from the time that they graduate over the course of their lives. So as we think about that on our campus, we've developed some strategic work, and that strategic work points towards these 4 goals. And the goals are easy to remember because they spell my favorite word. So these are the goals of, as we think about Worcester's promise. We want to keep doing the things that are central to our mission, making that mission real for the future. We need to think about, how are we bringing students to the campus? That's the first one. How are we inspiring and drawing great students to Worcester from across the country and around the world? And in particular, how are we making sure that we continue to be a college that's accessible for students from a wide variety of walks of life? Worcester has been good about this for a long time, and it's a commitment we absolutely intend to hold: accessibility and affordability, so that great students who belong at Worcester can be here. And many of your gifts are critical to making that possible. We also need to think about the learning that students do here. Of course, how are we meeting these students who come from across the country and around the world where they are when they arrive, helping them expand their capacities and viewpoint, and preparing them so that they're ready for a great launch and to have lives of purpose where they're really making a difference? What are the tools that they need to be learning broadly in the liberal arts as well as within their particular majors? So I'll talk about that a little bit. We need to pay attention to thriving. This international and diverse community of learners needs to be thriving so that students can stay. We want to always have the students who are here be able to complete their 4 years, to do well and be well, thriving in a campus community that's vibrant and deeply welcoming, so that they're having a good experience. And then, of course, we also need to pay attention to the flourishing of the college, as well as the flourishing of our students, making sure that we're doing the right things for the college in the long term, so that we're strengthening the resources we have to support our students and provide a Worcester education, and stewarding them excellently and responsibly, and then continuing to build the college's reputation, telling the college's story in the world. So as we thought about the ways that we could enact these priorities, make these things true, over the last couple of years, we've had a lot of conversations with alumni, with students, with faculty and staff, and also with prospective students and families, those who haven't yet decided whether to come to Worcester. And it's really been interesting, especially in talking with alumni and asking them, what are the things that students need to learn when they're in college? That no matter what kind of field alumni were in, whether they were doctors or teachers or pastors or mostly engaged in their own local community as volunteers, the strong themes that came forward about how we make Worcester's promise true for the decades to come, what we provide to students, were really universal. And here's what they are. They're focused on collaboration, communication, and connection. Those kinds of connection that are going to be most important include communicating effectively, making sure that students are prepared to communicate in spoken, written, and all different kinds of digital communication effectively with a wide variety of audiences. That came across loud and clear as a top priority. We also heard really strongly from people in every area of work that students need to be able to bring together many different knowledge bases, many different approaches to solving complex problems. They need to keep studying across disciplines and connecting the ways of solving problems that come from different areas of study to find innovative new solutions. Probably one of the strongest things we heard from alumni in all different fields about what students need to learn had to do with connecting across people. That cultural competency, the ability to work effectively in diverse groups, to make the most of differences in experience and perspective, knowing that those diverse experiences and perspectives, those different ways of coming at a problem are going to be necessary for the kinds of innovative solutions, the very best solutions for problems that are challenging in every kind of field of work. So we know that what this means is that we're going to need to continue to ensure a student experience that builds from our strengths in individual mentoring, in independent study, in that individual achievement of discovery in the world, but that also helps students continually find ways to connect with one another, to work collaboratively, and to move out into new fields that may not even yet exist. So this is what brought us forward towards the kinds of strategic plan that we have in the Connect, Create, Discover strategic plan that we've been working on the last couple of years. And I'm happy to provide some updates on the ways that that has been going. So these are the key areas of focus of our strategic plan. The key areas of focus for our thinking, but also a focus for our action. The first is building and making the most of our internationality and diversity, and ensuring that our campus experiences are excellent, welcoming, and inclusive for everybody. The second is a vibrant, welcoming, inclusive, and strongly connected community, making the most of those wonderful people who are here for 4 years by helping them come together to have a sense of belonging and to know one another and to learn from one another every day. The third is academic innovation, thinking about new modes and areas of study that are compelling to future students and powerful for the kinds of futures that they themselves want to build. And that relates really directly to the next item here, connected learning, helping students bring their classroom learning out to action in the world, not just when they graduate and become employed, but over the course of all 4 years, from the very beginning of their time, bringing their classroom learning out into campus action, engagement with our local community, and connections well beyond Worcester, all the way out across the world. Of course, we need to do all of these things in a robust financial model and in ways that are compelling as we tell Worcester's story to prospective students and families around the country. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the work that we've been doing in each of these areas, and then I'll be happy to take your questions. So first, I want to talk a little bit about a vibrant, strong, and inclusive community. As you might have guessed, the photo that you see on the screen right now is the one photo from today's presentation that was taken before the spring of 2020. This is a photo from the fall of 2019. And what you see pictured here are some of our resident assistants and orientation counselors welcoming the incoming class that started in the fall of 2019. And you see their shirts which say, "Welcome home." What we're doing here is thinking about the ways that we can make a fantastic lived experience for our students on the campus. Because we bring students together physically on a campus, as I said earlier, learning together for really intentional reasons. Not just for fun, although I'm for fun, not just because it's comforting to have folks around you, although I am very much interested in students' sense of belonging, but because the learning that students do by making meaning together in classrooms and dining halls and concert spaces and playing fields in their residence halls, that learning that they do, like in that picture right there, that learning is crucial to their growth as people. It's crucial to their preparation to make an impact in the world. And if we're doing it right on our campus, we're intersecting that extraordinary living and learning experience with the wonderful experiences that students have in the classroom. And as we think about that learning experience and we think about the ways that students are learning from one another, we realize that we here at the College of Worcester have an extraordinary strength. We have a strength that very, very few colleges have because of the internationality, the diversity, and the breadth of our student body in every imaginable dimension. So if you think, for example, about the first year class that will be arriving this coming fall, in the fall of 2021, we'll bring about 560 new students to the college. About 100 of those students will be Pell Grant recipients. They're students from significantly low income families who are able to come to the college because of the generosity of many alumni who create scholarships to make that possible. About 180 of those students will be from Ohio, some from cities like Cleveland and Columbus and Cincinnati, but many from small towns. Some have been homeschooled. Some of these students are rural students who've had very little opportunity to go beyond their home area, let alone out of state or abroad. At the same time as we're paying attention to our Ohio students and making sure that they have good access to the college, including good financial access to the college, we're also the most international college in Ohio and one of the top 20 in the country. So in this class of 560 who will arrive next year, we're going to have about 100 students from outside the United States. And those students will probably come from something like 40 different countries. In a typical year these days, students apply to the college from over 100 countries every year. Over 100 countries. Think about those students all around the world saying, I want to live and work and study here in this community, in the College of Worcester. So this work around creating a vibrant, strong, inclusive community is about the extraordinary potential that comes to our campus every fall, embodied in those 560 new students from small towns and big cities, from right around the corner and from all the way across the world. How do we help them knit together, support one another, build the connections that will support them while they're here, as well as long after, and help them learn the most from that extraordinary moment? And we know that students' experiences of welcome, of belonging, of friendship are tremendously important to their thriving, as well as, of course, to their learning. And so supporting that community and the learning that happens in it is one of our highest priorities. We're working on that by helping to strengthen what we're doing in residential life, thinking about the spaces where students are living and the ways that we're helping them connect from the very first days they're here. How are we helping them connect and find a group of people so they begin to know one another well in many different ways, from first year seminar to their first year hallway to their orientation programs. We're thinking a lot about those connections in residential life. We're thinking about investing in spaces that support that connection, including the renovation of the Lowry Center, which of course is the heart of community, where students learn to live and connect and lead together, surrounded by supportive staff. That's a critical piece of what we're doing around this community component. And then also thinking about health and well-being, continuing to strengthen what we offer for mental and physical health in the Wellness Center, and providing health education so that students are learning themselves to keep themselves healthy and how to do that both here at the college and over the course of their lives. I want to talk a little bit more next about internationality, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because creating that diverse community that I just described, that community from dozens of countries and from across the United States, is only, of course, the beginning. We need to ensure that Worcester is deeply welcoming and equitable for all staff and faculty so that everyone has an excellent experience here. Everyone has those excellent opportunities to live and learn and work that we intend and that we plan for. That means that we need to help everybody learn, to educate people to strengthen understanding, to reduce bias and discrimination of all kinds, and to deepen the resources that help everyone learn and that support thriving. That work also at the same time as supporting individuals and creating excellent and equitable experiences for them, it's also about enabling students to build their skills in communication effectively and respectfully across difference. So the map that you see on the right-hand side is a map where all of the countries from which we received applications in 2019 are colored in gold. So if you want to get a visual sense of what it looks like to have your students apply from 130 countries across the world, this is where folks are coming from. And of course, that work around equity and inclusion is a moral necessity, as well as being critically important for recruitment, thriving, well-being, retention, and student learning as well. So here are a few of the key things that we're working on around diversity, internationality, equity, and inclusion. So one is continuing to become more diverse and more international. It's a great strength and we want to build from it. The second is inclusive excellence, paying attention to what we do in classrooms, what we do in athletics, what we do in musical spaces, and thinking about how are we making sure that all of those spaces are ones where every student feels welcome and at home, and where we're intentionally pushing back against all different kinds of bias to create spaces that are great for everyone. We're thinking about strengthening resources for students to learn about issues of justice and develop capacities to lead and make a difference. We've made some changes in our core curriculum that helps support student learning in global engagement and in understanding of questions of justice and equity. Of course, key here also is increasing access, support, and opportunity. Again, financial aid is key here, as well as other kinds of supports that people have provided, for example, for student internships and other opportunities where students might not otherwise be able to afford those. And then engaging and connecting with our city to make sure that the spaces that we're creating here on campus are in communication with our larger city and community. So now I want to talk just briefly about academic innovation. Here, as we talk to students, particularly to prospective students, but also to parents and alumni, we really heard strongly two things. One is that students are still really excited about a liberal arts education. They are hungry to learn broadly and pursue their intellectual passions. At the same time, they want to be sure that they're preparing for a great life after college, for a strong career, to make a difference. And of course, we all know that a liberal arts education provides a great preparation for intellectual nimbleness and being able to do all kinds of things across the course of your career, to take jobs that didn't even exist when you were in school. It's a great place to prepare for a vibrant and exciting career. But we also know that students are interested not just in hearing this is a great education for 20 years after you graduate. They want to know that it's an education that prepares them to launch strongly from the moment that they're here. And so they're interested in exploring intellectual passions and professional aspirations simultaneously through that liberal arts education. So there are a couple of things that we've been thinking about here. One is that a lot of the areas of greatest interest for students to study and major in sit at the intersection between historical or traditional disciplines. And so we've been able to build a set of new interdisciplinary majors and areas of study that are really exciting, both for our faculty, who are very much interested in these connections across fields of study as well, and for students. So among the majors we've added in the last couple of years are environmental studies and environmental geoscience, global media and digital studies, statistical and data science, as well as education. And all of these majors are innovative in different ways. All of them connect classroom learning also out to action in the world and to real world examples in ways that are really exciting. In addition to adding new majors, we've also added a new structure called pathways. Pathways are a new kind of opportunity where students can, in addition to their major, pursue a set of courses, perhaps 3 or 4 courses, while at the same time doing an internship or community engagement that's significant. And these are in fields where we don't have a major, but fields where students may be interested in a focused exploration that could help prepare them for a potential area of professional work. So we have entrepreneurship, museum and archival studies, public health, digital and visual storytelling, activism and social change, and several more. Faculty have come together across departments to develop these pathways. They actually did it last summer in the teeth of the pandemic as they were learning to teach remotely. They developed these pathways across departments because they were thinking about the ways their ideas came together to cluster around areas of interest that many students have, and the ways that students could be trying those out in the classroom as well as in action in the world. Of course, at the same time, we're thinking about digital fluencies, the ways that students communicate and receive digital information, and how that inflects independent study. And we actually accelerated that work a little bit this year because, and last year as well, because students were presenting their independent studies not in person as they have over the last 10 years or so, but actually doing that remotely and making digital presentations, as many of you may have seen, because almost 7,000 people saw the digital presentations of independent study. So really beginning to think about what are the kinds of ways of understanding and exploring new material, and what are the ways of describing and sharing that information that make the most of the digital skills that students need to learn, and also that enable them to share their work far more broadly than they can in ways that are just confined to the historical approaches we've taken on campus before. And as you can tell, that academic innovation is very connected to this idea of connected learning, learning that connects what students are doing in their classrooms to action in the world. As you can see here, we're really paying attention to applied kinds of study. The photo that you see on the top there is from a garden. That's Professor Matt Mariola, one of our professors in the new Environmental Studies program, working with a couple of students around these questions of agriculture and sustainability and farming. Students are very, very interested in those intersecting science and societal questions. And at the bottom here, you see a student working with Professor Surratt in the lab, again, taking their classroom experience out to action in the world. One of the key things that's happening in this connected learning space, in addition to thinking about ways that even classes can be more engaged in action on campus and in the area, is thinking about the ways that we can connect students to alumni as resources and mentors. More than 1,500 alumni have joined the Fighting Scots Career Connections, which is a wonderful opportunity online where alumni can come together and talk about fields of interest and professional expertise, but also where alumni have just been doing fantastic work helping students who are graduating into this incredibly complex time of the pandemic, helping these students to develop networks, to consider what they may want to do next, to get advice, to get mentoring. And also many of you have been providing opportunities, internships, other kinds of things, which have been wonderful for the students as they've been preparing to launch into the world. So thank you to all of you who've been part of helping students build those kinds of mentoring networks. And we invite even more of you to join us. This has been really powerful for our students and hugely helpful, particularly in this complicated moment. So the last thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is resources and reputation. One of the first questions I get often from alumni talking about this pandemic year is, how did the college come through this time financially? Now, of course, I'm sure you've all heard that all colleges and universities, like almost all businesses, were really impacted by the pandemic that has profound impacts on every college and university. That's absolutely true. It's also true that Worcester has been really, really carefully, thoughtfully, conservatively managed financially for decades by our board of trustees, by campus leaders, by many people long before I got here. And so we came into this difficult time of the pandemic with a strong and steady position, and we're coming out of this time of the pandemic in a strong and steady position. We've not needed to dip, for example, into drawing extra from our endowment, as many colleges have. We've been able to manage carefully because really of the steady management over decades of the college and the board, and the very thoughtful work, and then, of course, the continued generosity of our alumni. So thank you for that. We continue to want to be sure that we're stewarding those gifts as carefully as possible. We're also thinking about environmental sustainability in every project that we do. And as we move things forward on the campus, how do we make sure that we are minimizing our ecological footprint and doing the best we can to be operating our spaces and our operations sustainably. We're also thinking a lot about new ways of telling Worcester's story. We'll be revising our website again very soon, including ways that will make it easier for alumni to engage with us online. And we're thinking about the ways that we present ourselves in a lot of different ways to help connect to lots of different audiences, including prospective students and families, the larger country and the world to understand about Worcester Des, and of course, our closest friends like you. So I want to thank you again for all that you're doing. Your support, your engagement, your encouragement, all of the time, but particularly during this difficult year, the ways that you've been in touch with the campus and engaging in supporting us, the college, as well as our students, has been incredible. It's hugely powerful to all of us, especially when we're going through a challenging time, to have the energy of the Scott family behind us. And we thank you so much for everything that you've done and for all of your engagement. So I'm going to take my slides down now, and I'm happy to take questions on anything at all, either things I talked about or other things of any kind.
Well, thank you so much, President Bolton. As a reminder, there is an opportunity to ask questions through the Q&A feature down at the bottom of your screen. We do have a couple questions that have been submitted so far, so I will sort through these. President Bolton, one member of the class says, during our years at Worcester, our living arrangements allowed for great connections, and resident advisors were terrific during the first year at building community. Can you talk a little bit about how today Worcester is building community through our residential, our residence halls, and the role that resident advisors play in helping to build that community?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that question. And you're right, resident advisors are critically important always, but especially for students in the first year. I think as we're bringing students together from really all around the world who have very different experiences before they come to college. So they're all coming to this community, they're excited to be here, but their lives before college don't necessarily have a lot in common. One of the things we're doing is really thinking about how do we prepare those resident advisors so that they're ready to help knit that community together, weave that community together into a strong fabric. That's a skill. Right? It's not necessarily, I mean, it requires being friendly and caring about people, but it also often requires some kinds of facilitation skills, thinking about how you manage a situation where there may have been a difference of opinion, or one of the political divisions that we know are ever deeper, for example, in our country has emerged. How do you come through that time so that on the far side, people actually know and understand each other and themselves better and are more strongly connected, rather than, as so often happens in the larger society, people become more divided and less trusting of one another. That's serious work. Actually, most people are not actually trained and well prepared to do that. So we think about intentionally, how are we choosing those resident advisors, but also how are we preparing them? What are the tools they have? And then what are the resources they have? We always used to say, resident advisors know that if someone sprains their ankle, they know who to call for help. But where's your 911 if a racist incident happens on your hallway and you need to address that in the immediate moment at 2 a.m. with your students? Are there people you can call? What skills do you bring to the table? Those are really important questions, and those proactive community building questions. How do you hold that first dinner of your students who have many home languages, many different home traditions? So we talk about those things really proactively. And a lot of the work increasingly in preparing resident advisors is in helping the residence hall be a wonderful first community for our students. The other thing that we think about a little bit is helping students have many first communities. So many small places where even right away from the beginning, they feel like they have a few people. And we all know that just having a few people is a whole lot different from being alone. So as you said, the residence hall is one of them. We pay attention to community building in first year seminars. So every student's in a first year seminar in the fall of their first year. And those first year seminars have peer mentors associated with the seminar. And the faculty are also prepared to think about not just what are the academic skills and capacity students are building there, but how do those students know one another and function as a community? So that's a second place. And then we're also making sure that every student is connected and engaged in something else, whether it's, the chess club or the cheese club, and actually helping those clubs and organizations also think about how are they bringing on new members and how are those older students creating a proactively welcoming space. So really intentionally making sure there are a set of places where students are finding a little group of folks that they start to know, feeling more connected and more belonging from the beginning.
Excellent, thank you. Here's a question around affordability of small private colleges and the fact that, many people consider small private institutions to be out of their reach, too expensive for them to even consider. And so the question is, in Ron Lieber's book, he mentions the importance of cost and value. And how is the College of Worcester positioning itself? How are we talking about the value that we offer, and how our tuition, the sticker price, is not exactly what everyone pays? How do we break that message through to prospective students and their families?
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you for mentioning Ron Lieber's book, which is called The Price You Pay for College, and talks about exactly this question, what are the costs of different kinds of education and what are the benefits of different kinds of education? That book, for those of you who haven't read it, talks kind of generically about many different kinds of education, and then has only one chapter, which is about a single institution, which is called How the College of Worcester Puts It All Together. They hold up the College of Worcester as a real exemplar of excellence. And they talk about that excellence along a couple of dimensions, and I appreciate the question. One of the dimensions they actually talk about is our transparency. The fact that if you go today, you or a relative or a friend or their child, go today to our admissions webpage, you can put in information and get an immediate read on what your individual cost of attendance at the College of Worcester would be, including both scholarships that are for merit and academic excellence, as well as scholarships that are based on need. That's very unusual, that level of transparency, and it's really important to families. I used to work at another college before this one, and students said the following thing to me, especially low-income students. They said, I know that I think that the college wants to offer me some kind of aid, some kind of financial assistance in some way, but I feel like it's a puzzle, it's a maze. I feel like I'm told, run around, and somewhere under some seat in some classroom, your envelope with the information you need will be hidden under the chair. But your job is to run around and figure out where that is and kind of fight to get that information yourself. That is not the experience that we want to have for students or for families. We want to make sure that we are as transparent and as helpful in conveying what is in fact complex information, but in conveying it in a way that is as helpful in a time for students and families that's often confusing, especially if that student is perhaps the first in their family to attend college. And all of this language, right? What's a bursar? What's a controller? How does this all work? If all of that language is unfamiliar, it's a really challenging thing for students and families. So we've tried to streamline in places where we can. So for example, it's very clear on our admissions website and elsewhere that we admit students regardless of their family's financial need. We're really clear about that. We have also, for Ohio, for example, put in place a tuition-free guarantee for low-income students, that is, students who are eligible for the Ohio College Opportunity Grant. And so those students are told right up front, your tuition will be zero. And that's helpful, right? Not some complicated math thing, just zero. So we're continuing to think about this question. It is absolutely true, as you said, Tom, that although our sticker price is quite high, the average student is paying less than $20,000 in tuition, even though the sticker price is more than $50,000. One of the interesting things to say about the liberal arts college question, and I appreciate you raising this in terms of private versus public institutions, it sometimes surprises people, our socioeconomic diversity, the range of socioeconomic situations of our students, the percentage of our students who are from lower income families is higher here at the College of Worcester. We have more low-income families here at the College of Worcester than at Ohio State University. And that often surprises people. That's true for many small colleges around the state. We're committed to access and to support. And again, we're able to do that because of the generosity of alumni. And so we do, in fact, have the ability to support students who come from families with very limited means, and we're committed to doing that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm just adding in the chat the name of the book, The Price You Pay for College, so that you can all see that book, and we'll include a little link for where you can find that online. And Stephanie just included that link as well. We have one more question in the chat, so we'll just give a few more minutes for folks if you'd like to ask another question. Before we go to that, just another reminder, Stephanie did include the link to the Fighting Scots Career Connections platform that President Bolton mentioned earlier on in her presentation in the chat. So we hope that all of you will sign up for that. Also want to thank Cindy Weiss, Michelle Johnson, and Margot Braille, the leaders from 70 and 71 who have done a remarkable job at getting all of you excited for this virtual reunion, planning events throughout the course of the next couple of days for you to participate in. We had just under 60 folks here this afternoon, and I know what we will continue to see those numbers increase throughout the course of the weekend. Couple reminders, the class of 1971 has a memorial service on Zoom on Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. And then the class of 1970, you will hold your in-person celebration for your 50th at Black and Gold weekend this fall, September 24th and 25th. A last reminder, just if there are any other questions before we take this last one, every day you will receive an email that has all of the links to every single event that's taking place throughout the course of the day. So if you didn't register for one, feel free to still stop in or drop in, join us virtually for all of the events that are taking place over the course of the next couple of days. So those are all of my little updates. Our last question here, which focuses a little bit on the fall, President Bolton, can you talk to us how we are approaching COVID vaccines for students in the fall and what that might look like as we end the presentation?
Absolutely. We are so looking forward to the fall. Let me just say, we are so looking forward to the fall. We do have about 200 students on campus right now doing research and internships and engaging in with our local community through our various kinds of community engagement programs. And actually right now on campus, 100% of the students who are living on campus for the summer are vaccinated. That was a requirement for summer students. As we look forward to the fall, the other thing I was just going to mention, Tom, relative to your comments, it's great to know that the class of 70 will be back in Black and Gold weekend. We're also hoping to have some folks from the class of 2020 back in Black and Gold weekend. And, we were so struck last spring that the 50th reunion for the class of 70, who themselves had such a disrupted and difficult spring, was overlapped with the class of 2020 who similarly had this fairly disrupted and challenging spring. So hopefully some of the 2020s and the class of 70 will have a chance to get together and share those experiences, because it really it's a kind of extraordinary parallel. Anyway, what we're looking, we haven't made a final decision about whether we will require vaccine for students. We are really, we worked all spring to really help make vaccine available for students as well as for staff and faculty. So we've had a number of clinics on campus, helped people connect. And we know that by the late spring, but when we surveyed students about whether they'd already been vaccinated, the large majority of them already had. And so we're understanding that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention just this past Friday released new guidance for colleges and universities, helping them to understand the ways their campuses would need to operate if they were kind of only partially vaccinated versus if nearly everyone was vaccinated. And it's very, very abundantly clear that the science strongly supports, having as many people vaccinated on campus as possible. There are a variety of ways to get at that goal. One is with requirements, other is with other kinds of encouragements and motivations. And so we're continuing to explore what's going to be the best approach to that. But we have been, for the last several months, working really, really hard to help get good public health information out to students, to families, to staff and faculty, and to help make sure that our campus is both as safe as possible, but also operating fully in person in the fall. And that is our intention, to operate fully in person in the fall, with classes, with athletics, with music and theater, with social life and life in the dorms, and all of the great things that our students benefit from during their time here at the college.
Well, that is certainly something for all of us to look forward to. We thank you so much, President Bolton, for spending time with us this afternoon. We thank all of you for joining us here today. We look forward to seeing you throughout the course of the next couple days for Reunion Reimagined 2021. We hope you have a wonderful evening and look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Take care and be well.
Thank you so much, everybody. Take care. We'll see you soon. Come on back soon.